Jordan Maxwell continues as a predominant researcher and speaker in the fields of secret societies, the New World Order, occult, religious philosophies, and ufology since 1959, way before I was born. His work on the subject of secret societies, both ancient and modern, and their symbols, has fascinated audiences around the world for decades. Considering the rapidly moving events of today and the very real part that hidden religious agendas play in our modern war-torn world, he feels these controversial subjects are not only interesting to explore, but too important to ignore. Of course, we are privileged to be joined tonight by the legend, Mr. Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, are you there?
Well, I'm here, yes. Kind of hard to follow that kind of an introduction, but
yeah, that was pretty good.
Because
I
don't consider myself to be anything of an importance. I just do what I do, and I hope that other people can open their minds. This is all I'm trying to do, is just have people open their minds to the concepts and ideas that are all around us that most people will never be privileged to know about. We get so caught up in our everyday life that we don't really stop to think about who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, and what it all means. And so, I started talking about secret societies back in 1960, 61, and my goodness, now that I look around the world and see it's everywhere now, it's been quite a ride for me. Quite an experience.
Well, it seems like it. I have to also say, folks, if you don't know Jordan, which there doesn't seem to be too many folks in this chat room, but the new guard that I like to call them, Jordan, the up-and-comers, the new generation, the 20s and the kids in their teens and such that are just getting exposed to someone like yourself. Jordan's a very humble individual. He doesn't take a lot of credit for what he's done, and he's also brought forward some of the people that you do know, marquee players such as David Icke. And the first time that I got a chance to say hi to you was in San Jose a couple of years ago when I sat through about 7 hours of David Icke, and you were there. It was a long weekend.
I can imagine, yeah. David does those long ones. I don't have that much energy left, so...
well,
I brought David Icke.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I brought David Icke over to this country, I think it was about 92, 93. I was approached by some people from England and asked if I would bring their friend over, David Icke, over. And I said, why should I? Who is he? And so they began telling me about David's work and what he was doing and what he's trying to do. And I thought that sounded interesting, so I brought him over. I gave the two people who originally met me, I gave them jobs also, bought them a new car and got them a place to live, and started promoting David Icke around the world, and the rest is history. And I've worked with lots of people, from David Icke to Zecharia Sitchin. I was in business with him for a while and sent him around to around the planet. I was going to do a 13 one-hour miniseries with Zecharia Sitchin and for television, and I think we sent him to 5 countries. We were supposed to send him to 7 countries, but the deal fell through before we could finish it. So that never happened. But it was fun working with him. I have the highest respect and admiration for Zecharia, and like I said, we were business partners for a while. And John Rappaport, I hired him to work with me. A lot of people have heard of John Rappaport, and a lot of and Richard Hoagland, like I said, and just many other people behind the scenes for many years, because I always viewed what I was doing as I'm trying to awaken people to look at important information. I don't consider my work to be important. I consider the work of other people who have done so much for educating people, but they don't get out there. So I figured, well, I'm out there, and I will bring the attention to the people who need to have the attention brought to them. And so that's what I've always tried to do. Again,
that's right. And sayers and doers, and you are an ultimate doer, my friend. Now, let's start off, I think, the best way. There's 100 things we could talk with you about tonight. One of the greatest things is that we're commercial-free, Jordan, so that we can let you speak without interrupting every 2 minutes. Now, I think what we need to do first is we need to stay current, because the listeners that contact me during the week, the people on the show who are listening tonight, they're afraid. There's a lot of fear going on. People are very afraid. And usually I used to say to people, you know, you won't believe in flying saucers until they land on your front lawn and steal your pension check, because only people care about is their money, right? Well, it seems as though this day has come, because people that thought their safe investments, their IRAs and their 401ks and everything else that they were so excited about, and their real estate endeavors that were safe flips, have fallen into a bottomless pit. And now people are all screwed up. Nobody knows who to trust. But you have been telling people this for a very long time, that what people think is reality isn't. And what people really want is a very simple life. They just want to be able to be in their house watching the tube and doing their thing, and they don't realize, I think, until now, that things are not the way they seem, are they?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, you sounded like that movie, Network, where the network, remember that? He said, well, just leave us alone, leave us with our radial tires and our toothpaste, and leave us alone. But no, the world's not going to leave you alone. You have been brought into a system that you don't understand. That's a big thing with me, is how many people do not understand the world they're living in. They don't understand how things work. I've said this many times, but maybe there are those in the audience who haven't heard it, so I'm going to say it again. I'll give you an example. If you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor upstairs, the first thing to do is go downstairs and get on a ladder with a building inspector and go up through the ceiling tiles and look at the foundation of the floor that you're going to build on with that kind of weight. And so what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation that you're going to build on to get understanding, because that's where the word understand comes from, is standing under a subject. Go down deep. Don't just buy what you see with your eyes. I mean, and when you begin to do that kind of deep research into what things mean, where they came from, start looking at the words and the terms that are used, and start questioning how things work, because I'm telling you, nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Incredible story.
It's frightening. In fact, let's get a little more granular, because there's so much information in that head of yours. Now, if I asked people in this chat room, however many there are, how they would define the New World Order, I think I would get a lot of different answers. I think people think of the New World Order not because they want to, because it's just a lack of knowledge. I might be one of them, as this generic term that's sort of thrown around. But there seems to be this pinnacle point that we're moving towards. Acceleration, whether you want to call it a quickening, we've heard that term in the past, whatnot, it doesn't really matter. What is the New World Order according to Jordan Maxwell?
Well, there have been many good organizations and good people who started out with a great idea and then got co-opted for whatever reason and taken over from the inside, and ultimately their great dream and their great idea was turned into a nightmare. And I think that's what's happened, because the New World Order actually goes back to an ancient concept of one day the entire world will be one mankind, one people on the earth. I don't really see anything wrong with that as such, but and of course the founding fathers of America, they saw the founding, they called it the Saturnian Age. I've got documents going back to the late 1700s where some of the founding fathers are writing to each other, and they talked about the coming Saturnian age, or the age of Saturn, in which the golden age of mankind was approaching, and that the coming of the United States of America was supposed to be a beginning, planting on the earth of a new idea for the human race, where all the world could respect freedom and liberty and justice and honor each other's background and each other's country, and to form a new kind of civilization. That's what some of the founding fathers had written about. But I think what happened is that they got co-opted by the powers that be, which is always the case, because the church saw what was going on, and most of this, most of this concept was being carried on, as you probably know, by the Masonic orders in Europe, and of course the Masonic orders in America. And the Masonic orders in America really believed that what they were doing in founding this country was to give a first example to the world of what it could be like if all peoples from all over the world came together and lived in one place and honored each other's background and past and had respect for law and order and decency, and we could build a whole new civilization. And that's what America was. It was a melting pot of the earth.
Sure.
And so it was a great idea, and it actually worked for a while. But as life would have it, the powers that be behind the world thrones saw that this is not going to fly. This is not going to work. We cannot have a totalitarian dictatorship where everyone crawls on their knees to kisses your ring. If we've got the biggest and most powerful establishment in the world preaching freedom, liberty, and justice for all, it's not going to work. And so you need to go back into history like over 2,700 years ago, when the Roman Empire came into being, and under the Caesars of Rome, and then even after the collapse of the Roman Empire came the Vatican. Rome has dominated Europe for almost 2,700 years. Rome has dominated all of Europe. All the royalty of Europe and all the kings and rulers of Europe were supposedly there by divine right. Well, divine right, if you look it up, actually goes back to the Pope blessing a particular person and making him a king. Therefore, the king has a divine right because the Pope in Rome has said so. Well, the divine right, now we begin to see how with the coming of the Renaissance and the Masonic orders, Freemasonry coming into their own power and starting to move into America, and with this idea of we've had enough of the Pope and the divine right of kings and all that divine crap. We've had enough of that stuff, and we want to honor all people for freedom and liberty and justice for all people, and getting rid of this whole religio-political scheme that has dominated Europe through the Roman Empire, through the Vatican. And so I think it was probably a very good idea that the Masonic orders had for looking to the future to bring a new world order into being under law and justice. And it was basically the writings of the Renaissance that gave impetus to this whole movement of Freemasonry. So when I hear people bad-mouthing Freemasonry, I'm thinking you wouldn't even have the freedom you've got now if it hadn't been for Freemasons in Europe coming to America and the American Masonic orders defending the concept of freedom, liberty, and justice for the whole world. So,
interesting. I think, Jordan, people get Freemasonry confused with the Illuminati sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's like getting people who live on the island of Sicily confused with the mafia. Because and so then when you say something about the mafia, they will come back and say, now you're just picking on Italians. Now it's anti-Sicilian. You're anti-Italian. No, not anti-Italian. I'm talking about a specific group of Italians called mafia. Well, the same thing is true when you're talking about Freemasonry. You cannot paint with a wide brush everybody in Freemasonry, because some of the greatest people that ever lived were Freemasons, and some of the most brilliant and spiritual humans ever on the earth were Masons. So I don't have any problem with Freemasonry as such, but there is a world of hidden symbolism and power behind European divine right to rule the earth. Now we're talking about the Vatican. We're not talking about the Catholic people. My mother was a Catholic. My family were Catholic, so I'm not condemning the Catholic people. I'm talking about an ancient system that we call the Vatican, which was actually based on the old Roman system of world government. And as I said, you're not going to be able to bring about a new world order where all mankind can live in peace and harmony and be able to live in peace. You can't do that if the church, because you're going against the church. The church says that they have the divine right from God to rule the earth. And then Americans and American Freemasonry comes in and says, no, we've had enough of that. You know, we've watched you for 1,000 years, and we've had enough of your divine right. And so we're setting up a whole new humanistic system where humans will be respected, and your saints and your church is out. It's over. It's finished. And so that grew so quickly that the United States became one of the most powerful governments in the world. Why? It's because people from all over the world were tired of this totalitarian fascist dictatorship of the papacy over Europe, and ultimately Europe over the world. And so this whole idea of freedom and liberty and justice, you know, appealed to everybody, no matter what color, where you came from. And so that's
fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
You should be a professor at Harvard at this point, because the history of this is really important, even though sometimes a bit of it to people who are so used to technology, the new guard, I call them, that listen to this show, they want it in seconds. What is it? What is it? Oh, that's taking too long. But honestly, let's bring it back home for a minute, back to the United States, Jordan, and to modern times. If you listen to some of the conspiracy radio, I don't want to call them shock jocks, but let's call them the popular ones of today, a la Alex Jones and those kind of folks. I mean, you listen to Alex Jones, and he's making it seem as though, A, you're going to be put into a FEMA camp soon. All of our rights are going to be taken away. Martial law is going to occur soon. You listen to David Icke, and the vaccinations there are ulterior motives behind them. And Obama is this corrupt individual that has been chosen to be some sort of tool for the people, the puppet masters that I'm going to ask you about, who they are, really the people controlling this nation. But I guess my first question is, Obama is doing very badly. It doesn't even look like he's going to get a second term right now. I mean, do you think he is? I mean, I think he's in a lot of trouble right now.
Well, I think he is too, and I think it's not just him. I think the entire country is in trouble right now. The entire United States of America is in serious trouble. I don't have any serious problems against some of the people you talked about on their radio shows, because I think there's something to all of that, because there is a lot of corruption going on, and there are FEMA camps around, and there's all kinds of horrible things being done against us here in our country. But on the other hand, I think that, well, Obama, as you know, I've just put out a video just recently called Dawn of a New Day. Did you by chance happen to see Dawn of a New Day video yet?
I only got to see the first half. Okay.
Well, I think it's probably toward the second half, I started talking about a symbol or a term which has been used and is going to be used, and it was called the New Dawn, and I talk about the New Dawn in Christianity and religious organizations around the world using the word New Dawn and what that implied, and how the secret societies are using that term, New Dawn. Not always is the word New Dawn evil. There's a magazine in Australia called New Dawn, which is a great group of people, and I really appreciate their work. But politically speaking, when you're hearing it from world governments and from in the political circles, they're talking about New Dawn. Now that has to do with the Illuminati symbolism, and so I talk about that in the video I did called Dawn of a New Day. But it's interesting, I'm bringing it up only because last week, if you remember, if you read, that Obama has just changed the name of the war in the Middle East from Operation Iraqi Freedom to Operation New Dawn. And that was startling to me when I saw that. I thought, wow, man, there it is. I just got to saying it in the video 5 months ago, and here it is. And so there is something to the idea that there are some very evil people behind world governments. And I do believe, I mean, this is as far as I'm concerned, overwhelmingly obvious. Obama is not in power at all. I don't think he has much to say about anything. I think the people you really need to look at are the Henry Kissingers and the Zbigniew Brzezinskis and all the other people who have been pushing the Soviet line of a dawn of a new day, this new world order according to the Soviet communist system. I think that's what's going on here. But I don't really see Obama as being very powerful to do anything.
I don't even think he's going to get a second term. I don't think he's going to get a second.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not, because he's going down so quick.
Yeah. Well, look at it this way. If he was this tool to get a lot of things established, so far, most of his initiatives have not even worked out, especially in healthcare. So let's keep talking about these puppet masters. You brought up Kissinger. Now, does it go higher than these folks? We know that the corporations have a lot of control over what's going on. We all know nobody likes to be a sheeple. Nobody likes to be in the cube. I worked for Silicon Valley. I worked at Yahoo for 5 or 6 years. I worked at Fox. I was a cubicle guy. I thought that I was smart. I thought I had a handle on what was going on. And then one day I was shaken to the core because I started seeing people like yourself and some others, especially, and then the ET whole subject came into my brain, and then the floodgates just busted. So I guess, how high does it go here? Are we talking about, for instance, some of the folks we talk about, David Icke and some of these other characters, believe that there are actually extraterrestrial entities that might be the supreme puppet masters? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that's you're asking me for a subjective opinion, and I'm just giving you my opinion. I think that there is something to that. I believe that there is something to the fact that we are not alone on this planet, and that the higher minds in the universe that we have called extraterrestrials, my God, all the ancient peoples in the world have talked about this thousands of years ago, and all down through the ages, all the ancient reference books for the different religions of the world, all ancient religions in the world admitted that there was, and part of their teachings was that we are not alone on this earth, that there are extraterrestrial presence here on the earth manipulating the human family. And I choose to believe that based on all that I've come across in the last 48 years of my study. Incidentally, did you know that Yahoo, what that word, where that word comes from, incidentally? Yahoo was the Hebrew God. The Jehovah, or Yahweh of the Hebrews, another name for Yahweh, was Yahoo.
Wow.
So Yahoo is the Jewish God, and it's based on Jehovah or Yahweh. And, of course, when you get into religion, that's my favorite subject because, my God, there's so many things we could talk about in relation to religion and how it impacts our everyday life in such a way you would never suspect.
Well, Jordan, a lot of people say to me, and, well, I have a tough time with this one. They will say to me, religion is the worst disease on this planet because it has killed more people than any virus ever brought.
I tend to believe that, yes. I agree with that. What I would also say is that there is a world of difference between religion, which I abhor, and spirituality and the true appreciation for the spirit. I don't have any problem with believing in God, so to speak. But I'm well aware that God is simply, in our language, in English, dog spelled backwards. And I realize where the concept of God has come from, our words in terms that we use in theology and religion have come from, and there is a world hidden from people about where churches and religions have come from. So when I use the word spirit, I'm talking about the great spirit of the universe, or that which people have called God. So I don't have any problem with the idea of God, but there's a whole another world of hidden symbolism, words and terms that have been in use for thousands of years that we today use and have no idea in the world where it comes from.
Well, it's interesting. In fact, Stan Tenen, I'm sure you're familiar with, he's done some incredible research on symbolism within the Hebrew language, which is fascinating.
Right.
But I have to get back to...
about.
No, you're right on the money. I have to get back to what angers these 30-year-old, these 20-year-old folks that I'm talking about that are used to at this point. They're doing quality work. They're getting laid off every 2 years from a company. They're barely making ends meet. They don't believe anything they hear or read anymore. So everything that you guys were talking about for years has basically come to fruition as far as I can tell. So that makes me even more frightened. And you're humble as hell, and I appreciate that. But you deserve the recognition. But we have to ask you, what is coming next? Because there's no way you can listen to this program or to one of your videos and think that 2012 is another Y2K. It just doesn't add up. Am I right?
Yeah, the German television, national television company in Germany came over in 1999 to this country and to interview me for an hour television special on my work, and so the whole it was all broadcast in German, but it was broadcast over all of Scandinavia. Also saw it because I got tons of emails from people who had seen the show. And it was merely asking me what did I think was going to happen in the year 2000. You know, the computers are going to drop out and planes are going to crash. And I said then, I don't believe anything is going to change except maybe football might come on Sunday night instead of Monday night, and your taxes are going to go up, and the powers that be will still be in power, and nothing's going to change because you don't understand how the world works. And so I'm thinking the same thing about 2012. It's a calendar date. It's a calendar date, but it also I've got some dear friends who are experts on this, and I'm not an expert on 2012. And they have convinced me that there very well might be some serious repercussions in the natural world because of 2012. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this subject, and
I just wanted to get your take because it seems as though, like you said, there's so many experts that have come on this program, and these are high-caliber, educated people, both in science and religion/history. Yeah. And they're freaking out, this audience. They are creating a panic. A very small minority of them are very positive about this sort of shift in consciousness that we're going to gain, but a lot of them are more about, like I said, my guest last week, who believes that Nibiru, Planet X, will enter our galaxy into our orbit and screw up the levels to a degree that will create cataclysm and wipe out 90% of the people on the planet. And that's the kind of...
If that happens, if that does happen, I suppose anything's possible. My God! But if that happens, I believe a lot of this fear is based on ancient, prehistoric things which have happened, and this brings into play the Chronia group. You might want to go on my website and go to my links and scroll down till you see Kronia, Kronia, Kronia. The Kronia group is up in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, that's where
They have been, and they were doing a lot of great work. They're doing some sensational stuff on catastrophes, world catastrophes. I even hosted a science conference for them a few years ago, and the caliber of people that they had, scientists from all over the world talking about catastrophes that might be coming, catastrophes that had happened on the Earth. Velikovsky was a very big subject at that conference. So you might want to look at Kronia on my website on the links. They got a lot of information on what could happen, what has happened, and what is going to happen, in 2012. But again, I think it's a calendar event to start with. It's just from what I gather, it's the precession of the equinox beginning again. One of my dearest friends that I have the highest respect for is Jay Winder. And Jay and I have talked about this subject many times, and I would much prefer hearing his views than giving mine. But he doesn't seem to hold out. He doesn't seem to hold out a whole lot of hope for the human race, scientifically speaking. Yeah, it is.
It's frightening.
And I know Jay well enough to know that he is a highly intelligent, well-grounded, intelligent man who knows what he's talking about. And I've sat and talked with him for hours, and he's convinced me that there very well might be something very serious happening, to our solar system because of the alignment of planets or whatever.
Right, but that's the thing, Jordan, is that if you take away the Mayan issue, take away, as Jesse Ventura would say in his conspiracy show, he doesn't like to get into that whole aspect of 2012. He wants to deal with just the science. And the science is scary enough. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's, as I said, Jay Winder and I have talked about this, and if I am to believe Jay, and he's a brilliant guy, it very well could be that we're going to be facing some very serious scientifically, natural phenomena and problems that we're not prepared for. It's also an article of my faith that we as humans are going to one day confront our ways of living on the earth. All humans, I don't care what country. The human race is going to confront their sins. And somewhere along the line, we are, as a human family, are going to wake up one day and find out we've cut down too many trees. We have destroyed our water on the earth. We've destroyed and polluted our minds, our food, our governments. Somewhere along the line, I have got a feeling that we're going to wake up and find out that the whole human race is in a world of trouble, and there's no way out. And when I hear people say, science, no, science got us into the problem. And so I think the people in power are planning something, and I think they're probably planning on some terrible catastrophe coming, and that's why they're digging into mountains, and that whole space shuttle thing is, as far as I'm concerned, somebody's trying to get ready to get out of here. That's why they keep pushing the space shuttle, and that's what bothers the hell out of me when I see Americans standing out there watching the space shuttle take off, and they got their flags out there waving, and they're applauding. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you applauding for? You're not going anywhere. I mean, that space shuttle going up.
Yeah, the haves and the have-nots. And you know what's interesting is I would say probably 98% of my audience definitely believe in an alien presence that exists not only out there but visiting this planet and has been intrinsically involved with the Earth since its infancy stage. Okay, and you agree with that. But here's where opinions get altered and people get frustrated and angry, because if you take what's going on in America today, and I think people are so naive in America, they think, well, everything's going to turn around soon. They said it's going to take a couple more years. They're just assuming that the housing market's going to come back up. the stocks are all going to rise again and everything's going to be terrific. Because that's just the way it's always worked out. America is the best at everything in the world, and no one can beat us, and la-di-da. And they have such short-term memory, Jordan, in my opinion, that they're forgetting what's already happened in the past year to them. They're just trying to say, oh, it's going to turn around. But with the alien situation, people are getting very upset because they're saying to themselves, yes, I believe, but why aren't these people helping us? We need help. We need assistance. We need their guidance now. In your opinion, is that guidance happening? Are entities out there trying to assist us?
Well, I think so. I think there are. I mean, even in Christianity and Judaism, talk about guardian angels and that God has angels protecting us, and we've got way too many examples of other world occurrences like that, of entities who look like us, who came in to save someone's life and did something and then instantly were gone. So I believe that there is something to this idea that there is extraterrestrial or alien life forms here. We call them good angels, bad angels, demons, spirits, whatever you want to call them. They're not in your realm, but they're just as equally as alive as you are. You can't see them, but they can see you. And that is in keeping with Christianity and Judaism's concept of God and the angels. So I don't have any problem with the idea of extraterrestrials being here. But I'm also aware that there's, like everything else in the universe, there's good and bad in everything. So
right.
there very well might be some good and bad.
Well, the stories coming out of David Icke in the past, 10 years relating to reptilians have been really hard to stomach. Shape-shifting, blood-sucking.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, and I can appreciate that, but I believe, and it's, again, just my thought, but I believe that reptile aliens do exist. And thankfully, I've never encountered one. But I am inclined to believe that they do exist because I have heard way too many stories in my travels around the world from people who do not know each other, and all of these people are extremely well-grounded, highly intelligent airline pilots, doctors, theoreticians in government, intelligent people holding important jobs and have nothing to gain by lying, just telling me of their personal experiences with a reptile alien. I had one friend over in Las Vegas who was a very, very wealthy man who bought and sold hotels and commercial properties, and he told me about his experience with reptile aliens. I've had doctors and, as I said, airline pilots telling me about their experiences. So I'm of the opinion that there's way too many good people who have experienced something, and so I'm not about to say that they don't exist. I'm tending to think probably they do exist because there's too much smoke not to be a fire. But happily, I have never come in contact with them.
I agree,
but,
and I think it needs explanation. If you could assist here, Jordan, too. And I've talked about this before with just the new marketing guy from MUFON recently. His name eludes me as well. Gary, I think, is his first name. But here he is on the program a couple weeks ago, and he's trying to insinuate that I'm telling my viewers to storm the gates at Area 51. And I said, not at all. But let's keep in mind that we paid for that installation. Our money, not some phantom's money, the 40% of your paycheck that comes out while you're sitting in your cubicle, paid for that installation. And at this day and age, in this day and age, I don't see anything, you want to call it national security and utilize that blanket, but when you're talking about presidents that can't access places, we've known that Clinton and others have tried, there'd be Carter or Clinton, and then these people shut up. They get silenced. Who is silencing these people, Jordan? The presidents.
Well, I am totally convinced also that that Area 51, I've been up there at least a dozen times. I've had otherworld experiences there. I've had some extremely Powerful things have happened to me and other people with me up there which were not of this world. So I am of the opinion that there is something going on up there that is not of this world. It's off-planet kind of things going on up there. Aliens, UFOs, all kinds of strange stuff that I have personally myself been involved with and seen. So, and what I have personally seen with two other people was so startling and so frightening that it actually scared me, and I really was. I came unglued. It frightened me because of what I actually saw up there, and what happened to us out on the desert about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were confronted by 7 UFOs, and I'm telling you what we saw them do.
Wow!
And their very appearance was so frightening. Even the two people that were with me, 2 grown adults with me, a man and a woman, tears were in their eyes and fear. And I was frightened to death. I mean, it scared me. So I know, and then, of course, we actually had an alien come into the mobile home that we rented, because up in Area 51, what we call Rachel, Nevada, there's a little alien. If you've ever been there, it's a restaurant and bar kind of thing.
One time.
And then they rent out. They've got mobile homes. They rent out rooms like a motel. And we actually had an alien visit in the motel room the night we were confronted by UFOs out there on the desert about 1 o'clock in the morning. Frightening situation, right in our face. They came right down over us, and it was a very, very scary thing. And then that night when we got back to the motel, we were visited. We had an alien come in the bedroom. Wow. I didn't see it. It was in the other bedroom. There were 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in between, and my friend Paul Tice, who is the publisher, the owner of Book Tree Publishing, was with me, and it actually happened to him. And the other person was a lady named Ivy West, who was a radio talk show host in Hawaii, and she and I were in the other bedroom, and the 2 of them, Ivy and Paul, were privy to this visit by this alien, but I wasn't. I slept through it. And so, I've just seen too much and heard too much to not know.
Well, what happened? What happened with the alien? I mean, this is a big story. This is exciting.
I mean, that was a hell of a story.
What did he look like?
He came in. The alien came in. I'm just paraphrasing what Paul had to say. As a matter of fact, there's a video out there called Alien 51. Alien 51. I think Anthony Hilder produced it. And in that video, Paul Tice and I happened by chance to be out at Area 51 again, or out at the little alien, and there was a bunch of people out there, and we got to talking about what had happened to us. So Anthony went outside and set up cameras and lighting, and we went out in the late afternoon, and it was a really trippy experience. We went out there in the afternoon, lots and lots of people all crowded around. They set up the lights and cameras, and he interviewed both myself and Paul Tice. And for the first time, Paul actually explained what happened to him, and then went into that room where it happened. So if you ever get a chance to watch that video called Alien 51, it's all on there. And I talk about my part of it, and he talks about his part.
Well, what was the alien? Give us a couple of tidbits. I mean, what kind of alien was it?
He said he woke up in the middle of the night after we got home. We finally got to sleep after, we were scared and nervous and all that, but finally got to sleep. And he said all of a sudden, out of a sound sleep, he awoke and he was fully aware of everything. Usually when you wake up, you're groggy. He said, no, when I woke up, I was fully aware of everything around me, and something caused me to sit up in bed. And he said, and a light came on over my head, and it was a light green light, like a night light. And he said, when I looked up at the light, It was actually an alien's face, but it was a hologram. You could see through it, but it was the big eyes, the bubble head, but it was an alien's face glowing light green like a nightlight, and it slid across the ceiling toward the wall. And he said, then it would hit the wall, it began to slide down the wall until it was even with him sitting in bed. And at that moment, the room, in his mind, Paul Tice is telling this, Paul said the room began to circle around me. I could see the doors, the window, and everything circulating around me. But I'm sitting there in the bed looking at this alien glowing greenish light with an alien's face, and it began to telepathically talk to me. And it said to me, who are you and what are you doing here? And he said, and I could understand it very, very clear, and I tried to telepathically talk to it. And he said, and then it caused him to go through his mind. It went through his memory track, and he said, everything I'd ever done in my life, I saw in just a few moments, everything I'd ever done. And he said, so I saw my whole life go past me. And then this alien said to him, this glowing face that you could see through like a hologram, it said to him, you're all right, you're okay. And then it left. It went out the wall. It went through the wall and left. And Ivy said she saw the green light emanating from the bedroom next to us, but she didn't know what it was. And she said when she woke up and saw the green light, a little tiny red light, little pin light came zipping into the room when she woke up and hovered over the top of her so that she was totally paralyzed and could hardly breathe and couldn't say anything. And when the green light left, when that alien's presence left through the wall, and when it left, that little red light followed it out. And so the next morning, I'm sitting in the restaurant. I get up late, and the two of them are in the restaurant telling everyone about what had happened. And I thought they were talking about, when I went into the restaurant, there was lots of people sitting around the table, and Paul and Ivy are telling them about, our experiences. I thought they were talking about what happened to us out on the desert. Come to find out, no, they were talking about what actually happened in the hotel room, in the motel room.
Wow.
So I do believe, and I've also had other world experiences out there where
you have a story that I'm not going to put you on the spot because you're used to that. But before I get to asking you to tell this story, because I heard you tell it in San Jose, I remember, and I just found it fascinating because I didn't expect it to come out of your mouth. And it was one of those stories that if I was at a campfire and somebody told me this story, I would have just been totally taken in. So I don't know, you probably don't know which one I'm going to ask you about in a minute, but I want to get to something first to explain to this audience. People listen to this stuff, Jordan, sometimes, these subjects, these talk radio programs, and they don't realize the amount that the people involved have given up of their personal safety, security, happiness, financial gain.
Got that right. That is really true. Yeah.
I really wanted to kind of try to put it into perspective by letting you explain to people, you've been afraid for your life many times during this adventure, have you not?
Oh, Lord, yes. I mean, you have no idea. I've said so many times, I wouldn't wish my life on anybody. I have had, on one hand, it's strange the way the universe works. It's strange the way life works. That if you really want something bad enough and you work hard enough for it and long enough for it, and you make it the focus of your life, very well possible that you might get what it is that you wanted. But when you do, you need to understand the universe is going to require back something from you of equal value. It's a commercial universe, so to speak. If God gives you something, God will take something from you. It's a commercial arrangement, so to speak. So you get what you pay for. You want something bad enough. Well, you might have to pay by losing your family. You may have to pay by losing your wife, or something. You may have to pay something for what you want. If it's that bad, that you want it that bad, you're going to pay for it. There are no free lunches in the universe, so you get what you pay for. And to do what I have done, I lost my wife. She left me because of my work. I've had all kinds of tragedies happening to me. I ended up sleeping in one room for almost 12 years with no shower, nothing, penniless. I've had 3 times everything I own in this world, everything I own, stolen from me. People have come in who wanted to be my friend, and I gave them a key to come in to sit and study my work. They came in, took everything I owned, and left me with nothing 3 different times in my life.
Wow.
I have been approached by federal agents, especially because of my work with, especially talking about the commercial system and how the commercial world works. I've really got myself in trouble with talking about that, and had knocks on the door from federal agents, and I've gotten some serious problems. I've been indicted by government on occasions because of something somebody did, and they said I was involved, and so I have paid a terrible price. I mean, I've paid a terrible price to, and I've thought so many times I'm very unhappy with my choices in life because I've lost everything. And if it hadn't been for this young man who is my business partner now coming in to save my work and my person, I wouldn't even be here talking to you because my webman, the last webman I had, virtually stole from me everything I own, including my clothes, my mother's pictures, everything I own in the world. He stole from me, and he even went behind my back. He went behind my back and trademarked my name, and copyrighted my work and all of my videos to copyright, and trademarked my name, and took my bank account, took all the money, took everything I own, and left me, in fact, in a one room with nothing. And for 8 months, I was trying to get my stuff back. I have paid a terrible price to do what I do.
I know that you've talked about also your phone being consistently tapped and monitored.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'll be talking to people. I'll be talking to my friends, and someone will just speak. I didn't even know that they were on the phone. And they speak up and tell me, you better watch your mouth. We're listening to you. And I've been told that by FBI agents. I had an FBI agent call me over in Glendale, at my office in Glendale a few years back, quite a few years back. And he told me, he said, Jordan, I'm just calling you. It's a friendly call. It's not business. He said, I want to let you know we've been watching you for a long time, but your government at this point does not consider you to be a threat. So it's not. We're not calling, for business. I'm just calling to let you know you're being watched, and the government's watching you, but at this point they don't see you as a threat. And he said, but if you're going to get in trouble, you're going to ultimately find yourself in some serious trouble with the church. Because ultimately, he said to me, the church is one of the most serious criminal organizations on the earth. The church system in America and in Europe is a criminal organization. It's here for one thing: money and political power. And if you mess with the underpinnings of the church and religion, they're going to deal with you. And he said, so we know who they are. We already know. And they're watching you to see what you're going to do. So I have had threats against my life, threats against my work. And so,
Scary stuff. It's scary stuff.
It is.
But, I just wanted to bring that up and give you a couple minutes to talk about it, because it's not to put a chink on your chain or metal on your chest, because you're not about that. But it's to show people this is not all about entertaining you on a Wednesday evening, folks. It's about educating you. But it's also trying to point out the fact that when you go against the grain in this quote-unquote free country, there are tons of things that can happen to you. Obviously, the people that have stolen from you, Jordan, I would gather, probably were trying to break your will so that you would just give up on life.
Yeah, and the last one, I mean, like I said, 3 times everything was stolen, and this last time was just it was more than I could take, because he took everything, took my mother's pictures, took all my personal property, my clothes, and he took everything I own in the world and left and locked it up, and decided that he owned everything, and then as I said, he turned around and want to copyright all the materials, so he owns all my materials, and then went to the federal government and lied on federal documents saying that he owned the name of Jordan Maxwell and put it into trademark, so I cannot use my own name. This guy was an incredible criminal, a criminal of extraordinary circumstances. But
well, let's do this.
You
did. You're still here, and you've done some amazing work even recently in Los Angeles. You did that Camelot conference, which you did a great job. I saw some of the videos from that.
Oh, yeah.
And you've just, obviously, you're getting respect at least from the small community that travels down this path that are willing to go out on a limb. So at least you have that. And I hope that you hold that sacred. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
But let's do this. Let's try to end the show. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to show this audience that what a weird, strange place we live in, that we think we know who our neighbors are, and we think we know what a tree looks like when we look at it. But I heard this terrific story from Jordan Maxwell once when you first moved to California and you met this interesting girl. And I'm going to let you tell this story. You got 20 minutes commercial free. I'm telling you, folks, put down what you're doing and just listen to this tale, and then think about your neighbors and the people that you've run into who have been quirky in the past couple of months. Go ahead, Jordan, if you don't mind.
In 1959, we're talking 59, 48, 49 years ago. 1959, I was 19 years old, born in 40, so I was 19 years old. I ended up in Los Angeles with about $7 in my pocket. I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. I was just on the limb and ended up in L.A., and I ended up in North Hollywood. And one morning, I got a job here very quickly, happily, and kind of got my life together quickly. And I used to go down in downtown North Hollywood to the restaurant, and especially on weekends. And one morning I went in there on a Saturday morning, and the place was absolutely crowded except for one seat at the counter. So I took the counter seat. Come to find out, there's a girl next to me. I'm 19. She was probably about 17 or 18. And we started talking. Come to find out, she only lived a couple blocks past where I did, and I only lived about 3 blocks in town. She lived about 5 blocks in town. And so we walked home, and so when we started meeting on Saturdays and Sundays downtown, I'd walk down and she'd be down there. And then when we walk home, every time we walk home, I lived closer than she did, so she knew where I lived, but I didn't know where she lived exactly. And one night she came over to my place, and she said, "My dad wants to talk to you. He's got something to tell you." And I wasn't interested to talk to her father for anything. And she said, "No, my dad is a very important man, and he wants to talk to you." So I said, "Okay." So I went with her. Well, the moment, it was only about 2 blocks away, and I'd never been there before. And when we were walking up to the house, late afternoon, the father happened by chance to be coming out of the house and saw us. And the moment I saw him, I got a real strange feeling up my spine, one of these, I didn't plan for this. It just happened. And I got this strange feeling about seeing this man, and I knew there was something wrong about him. But it wasn't frightening to me, but I knew that I'm in the presence of something. And so he motioned for us to come in. So my girlfriend and I, we go in the house, and her younger sister, about 12 years old, and the 2 girls sat on the floor, and he and I, the father and myself, sat on the sofa, and he sat at one end, and I at the other. And the mother was in the kitchen, And he was very, very nice. I liked him immediately, but I knew there was something strange about him. And so we were talking, and he was asking me, how do you like your job? How do you like living in California? And so I became a little bit more at ease as time went on. And then when I was completely at ease and and felt very good about being there, he then said to me, he said, remember back when you were 8 years old back in Florida, and your father built a new back porch under the house, and he built it with your uncle, your dad's brother, helped him, and he used green lumber. And he said, remember when he built that new back porch, and it kind of smelled funny because the lumber was green? And I looked at him, and he said, remember how one night you were in bed, and you got out of bed, and you were supposed to be sleeping, and you went out on the back porch, and you sat there on the back porch, and the moon was full. And he said, do you remember doing that? And tears were coming to my eyes, and I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend. But he had such a powerful presence, and the things he was saying were frightening me because he was right. And he said, well, did you do that? Or didn't you? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, when you sat on the back porch, remember how you picked the wood with your finger because it smelled funny at nighttime, the green wood? And you picked it up and you were smelling the wood. Remember that? And you chewed on it. And I looked at him, and I'm telling you, tears were coming to my eyes because I knew,
wow,
this man is a powerful man, and he is telling me something I don't want to hear. And he says, and remember what you said? You looked up at the moon, and what did you do? You talked to God, didn't you? And I motioned my head, yes. And he says, and what did you say to God? You said to God that you wanted to do something important with your life. Is that what you said? And I looked at him. I couldn't imagine, where does this guy get this? And he said to me, he said, well, did that happen or didn't it? And I said, yes, that happened. And he said, well, how would I have known that? How would I know what you did? And I shook my head, and I said, I don't know how you know that. And he said, I know that because we were there. You just didn't see us, did you? And I said, I didn't see anyone. He said, that's right. You didn't see us, but we saw you. And I said, what do you mean we saw you? We? Yeah. And he says, look, that's not important. But what I said did happen. And the only way I could have known that is if I was there. And he said, why are you here in California? And I said, I don't know. I just had to come. He said, that's right. We brought you here. You've come to California at our behest, not yours. We brought you here. And he said, because you did ask God to let you do something important with your life. So we're going to let you do something important with your life. But what you're going to do, you're not going to do it until the last part of your life. So we're going to train you. And tonight is your first initiation where I'm going to begin you to train you into what you're going to do with your life and who you're going to be and what you will do for us later. But you have to be trained and prepared. And I'm looking at him, and I'm wondering, who in the world is this man that knows so much about me? And then he said, right. You've always been. Then he said, you've always been interested in UFOs and aliens and that kind of thing, haven't you? And I said, yes, I have. And he says, would you like to see some UFOs tonight up close? And I said, yes. And I'm looking at my girlfriend, and she's looking at me, and I don't know what to think of this. And I've still got tears in my eyes because he's scaring me. And he said, would you like to see some UFOs tonight up close? And I said, yes. He said, well, come with me. I can do that for you. Come with me. And I got up with him, and the two girls came out with me. The four of us are standing out in the yard. It's probably about midnight in North Hollywood, California, 1959. He begins to look up into the sky and begins to inaudibly talk to someone. His mouth is moving like he's talking to someone, but there's no sound. Then he looks down at me, looks over at me, and he said, they said they will be here in a few moments, and they'll be coming from southeast, and they're coming here in about 2 minutes. And I said, who? He said, well, you'll see. And sure enough, a couple of minutes later, 3 brilliantly beautiful UFO disc-shaped things. I don't know what they were. All I know is they were round, and they were about the size that the full moon appears in the sky. So they weren't little lights. They were at least the size of the full moon. And it was, and the bottom that I was seeing appeared to be like a pie cut in 6 or 8 pieces. Excuse me. And each piece was a different color. And they were circulating. The colors were circulating, but not so fast as to blend the colors. And the one thing I remember so distinctly about that night was that the colors were like laser colors. They were extreme colors, brilliantly beautiful colors. And all 3 were circulating colors, making no sound whatsoever. They came over our heads, 3 of them in a triangle formation, stayed there for a few moments, and he was looking up at them and talking, still couldn't hear anything. And he said, they said to tell you that they're going now, but they will be watching you, and they're leaving now. And they did. They began to move quietly, no sound whatsoever, and move off into the north. And I watched them as they left, and I was just amazed. I said, my God, what was that I just saw? And he said, that's us. And I said, who was us? He said, no, that's not important for you to know now.
That's not important.
No, it's not important for you. And he said, what's important for you to know is that you have been given something to do.
Okay.
And we will start you on your path tonight. And so he gave me a book. He said, I'm going to give you a book. I want you to read this book, and it will begin your journey tonight. And this was in 1959, and he gave me the book, which you can still get today. It's still a great seller even today. It's called The Complete Works of Charles Fort. The Complete Works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T.
F-O-R-T, Charles Fort.
Charles Fort.
I'm going to get it tomorrow.
Go into any good bookstore and ask for The Complete Works of Charles Fort. Or the book.
Okay, you got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. Tell us as much as you can in your last 5 minutes, Jordan.
Well, and so what I would say is I've got a lot of this kind of knowledge and this kind of stuff on my website, so you might want to go on the website and check out everything. Check it all out.
That's a good teaser, though. I mean, because a lot more happened in this story.
Oh, I've got 36 peak experiences. 36 major experiences in my life. That was merely one of 36. Extraordinary stuff, which I don't even have words for. So I have lived with this kind of thing. But even as a small child, I grew up in Gulf Breeze, Pensacola, Florida. Gulf Breeze, and Gulf Breeze is today still a hot spot for UFOs. Well, that's where I grew up. I used to have aliens come in my bedroom at night,
But Jordan, this is where I want to end it tonight. And folks, go to Jordan's website if you want to, or if you Google, you'll find this story. Do your digging. It's fascinating. But Jordan, this is why, and I say this to you as a fan, you have to feel blessed and lucky to a certain degree. I know you've had some terrible tragedies occur, but you've obviously been enlightened and chosen, and there are people that beg me to tell them how they can have an experience all the time, and they just don't. And so obviously you got to feel as though you're on a different level of enlightenment and a different place in the pecking order, as it would say. You know what I mean?
Well, yes. As I said, I've had 35 other peak experiences, major experiences dealing with the other world, with alien kind of thing. Well, of course, like I said, in the Bible, you have angels and spirits and God and all. You can even ask a 7-year-old, where is God? And he will point straight up into the heavens. Well, God is up in heaven. And where do angels come from? They don't come from L.A. They come from heaven.
Right.
Well, if angels come from heaven, then I hate to tell you this, but they're extraterrestrial, meaning they're not from this earth.
That's right.
So to quickly say, well, if somebody's having the experience with an extraterrestrial, they must be worshiping the devil or must be mentally deranged. Well, say the same thing about the prophets of the Bible. Say the same things about the Christians of the first century who saw spirits come into their room and saw angels, etc. Call them the same name. Well,
in essence, that's the only good thing I could say about the recession, Jordan, is that it's forcing the sheeple to look at things differently. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought it was all going to be easy. And now they have to reevaluate every nook and cranny of their life. And that is the only positive thing about the recession. Jordan, we're out of time. Give out your web address, and it was a fantastic show.
And go all through it, and thank you for having me on. It's Jordan Maxwell. It's Jordan like the river, Jordan, JordanMaxwell.com.
One of my favorite names, by the way.
Thank you.
Sir, it was a privilege interviewing you, and I hope to have you on in the future one day. And let's do it after 2012, and we can talk about what happened if we're still here. How's that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd like to come on and talk with you further about some of my other experiences. So let's do it
that
sooner.
Would be fantastic. All right, well, Tim will set it up. And, of course, you have some product over at Tim's site, too, which I'm going to tell folks about later. But you take care and have a fantastic week, and be careful, sir. We're always looking out for you.
Thank you very much for calling. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jordan. Folks, Jordan Maxwell, the godfather of the New World Order conspiracy, humble gentleman. Wow. What a great person. So many strange things have occurred to this man. You have to think he was chosen to a certain degree. You have people that delve into abduction. They are hypnotic regression specialists, people like Bud Hopkins. These folks have never had a sighting. These folks have never had an experience. Jordan Maxwell is not a crazy lunatic by any means, and that was one of the things I wanted to bring across tonight. Not only has he given up a large portion of his life on a personal level to make sure that information gets out, but he's a very sane individual. He's a very cool guy. So I hope we tried to give you an overview that what we're looking at out there, out our windows, at the office, talking to our neighbors, we don't know who's real, who's not, who's an alien, who's not, where we came from, and where we're going. And that is frightening, but it's also exciting. And with that, and I know I promised you a surprise tonight. I'm so glad he's here. One of our listeners made this incredible song, wrote, produced, and recorded this song called Saucerhead, which I'm going to leave you with tonight. Listen to this amazing tune this gentleman did. Marcus, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to interview Jordan Maxwell tonight. Of course, UFOTV.com, the mega hub for videos and DVD-related material. For all you members of the Ufonaut Radio section over there, there is new content. Go there and grab it. Exciting, exciting. This is Jesse Randolph. You've been listening to Ufonaut Radio. Until next Wednesday, 7 p.m., my friends, check out Saucerhead and have a great week.
Convinced that we didn't go. We did not go. We faked it, okay? We faked it. We did not go.
Since then, the whole flying saucer riddle had been hidden behind a curtain of Air Force secrecy.
So, that's what's going on. Ufonaut Radio, if you're a newbie, let's get this out of the way real quick. We exist to explore, report.
I am a cosmic cowboy. You can be my safe toy. I want to be a time traveler. I want to be an astrophober. I want to be a time jumper.
Ufology, that's the study of the stuff that's up there. Put your head up, people, unidentified flying objects. That's ufology, not so real. Exopolitics, study of possible political relations between humanity and extraterrestrial civilizations. And we discuss publications, books, happenings, conferences. There's a huge conference going on right now in Spain.
I want you be a sky ripper. I want to be a day tripper. I want to see my destiny. I am a prodigy. I am a humanoid.
Study of possible political relations, humanity, and terrestrial civilizations. And we discuss publications, books, a lot of emotion in people, this subject. They get very passionate either way. People get very, very upset about this topic in both directions. So I said to Tim last week, look, we got to put some people on hold here, and we got to get a moon hoax specialist, not just some guy that goes on Larry King or floats on Coast to Coast once in a while. I'm talking about we have to get, like, the quintessential guy. I don't care where he is. And Tim was like, well, you know,
educating people, but they don't get out there. So I figured, well, I'm out there, and I will bring the attention to the people who need to have the attention brought to them, and so that's what I've always tried to do. Again,
that's right. And sayers and doers, and you are an ultimate doer, my friend. Now let's start off, I think, the best way. There's 100 things we could talk with you about tonight. One of the greatest things is that we're commercial-free, Jordan, so that we can let you speak without interrupting every 2 minutes. Now, I think what we need to do first is we need to stay current, because the listeners that contact me during the week, the people on the show who are listening tonight, they're afraid. There's a lot of fear going on. People are very afraid. And usually I used to say to people, you know, you won't believe in flying saucers until they land on your front lawn and steal your pension check, because only people care about is their money, right? Well, it seems as though this day has come, because people that thought their safe investments, their IRAs and their 401ks and everything else that they were so excited about, and their real estate endeavors that were safe flips, have fallen into a bottomless pit, and now people are all screwed up. Nobody knows who to trust. But you have been telling people this for a very long time, that what people think is reality isn't. And what people really want is a very simple life. They just want to be able to be in their house watching the tube and doing their thing, and they don't realize, I think, until now, that things are not the way they seem, are they?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, you sounded like that movie, Network, where the network, remember that? He said, well, just leave us alone, leave us with our radial tires and our toothpaste, and leave us alone. But no, the world's not going to leave you alone. You have been brought into a system that you don't understand. That's a big thing with me, is how many people do not understand the world they're living in. They don't understand how things work. I've said this many times, but maybe there are those in the audience who haven't heard it, so I'm going to say it again. I'll give you an example. If you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor upstairs, the first thing to do is go downstairs and get on a ladder with a building inspector and go up through the ceiling tiles and look at the foundation of the floor that you're going to build on with that kind of weight. And so what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation that you're going to build on to get understanding, because that's where the word understand comes from, is standing under a subject. Go down deep. Don't just buy what you see with your eyes. I mean, and when you begin to do that kind of deep research into what things mean, where they came from, start looking at the words and the terms that are used, and start questioning how things work, because I'm telling you, nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Incredible story.
It's frightening. In fact, let's get a little more granular, because there's so much information in that head of yours. Now, if I asked people in this chat room, however many there are, how they would define the New World Order, I think I would get a lot of different answers. I think people think of the New World Order not because they want to, because it's just a lack of knowledge. I might be one of them, as this generic term that's sort of thrown around. But there seems to be this pinnacle point that we're moving towards. Acceleration, whether you want to call it a quickening, we've heard that term in the past, whatnot, it doesn't really matter. What is the New World Order according to Jordan Maxwell?
Well, you know, there have been many good organizations and good people who started out with a great idea and then got co-opted for whatever reason and taken over from the inside, and ultimately their great dream and their great idea was turned into a nightmare. And I think that's what's happened, because the New World Order actually goes back to an ancient concept of one day the entire world will be one mankind, one people on the earth. I don't really see anything wrong with that as such, but and of course the founding fathers of America, you know, they saw the founding. They called it the Saturnian Age. I've got documents going back to the late 1700s where some of the founding fathers are writing to each other, and they talked about the coming Saturnian Age, or the Age of Saturn, in which the golden age of mankind was approaching, and that the coming of the United States of America was supposed to be a beginning, planting on the earth of a new idea for the human race, where all the world could respect freedom and liberty and justice and honor each other's background and each other's country, and to form a new kind of civilization. That's what some of the founding fathers had written about. But I think what happened is that they got co-opted by the powers that be, which is always the case, because the church saw what was going on, and most of this, most of this concept was being carried on, as you probably know, by the Masonic orders in Europe, and of course the Masonic orders in America. And the Masonic orders in America really believed that what they were doing in founding this country was to give a first example to the world of what it could be like if all peoples from all over the world came together and lived in one place and honored each other's background and past and have respect for law and order and decency, and we could build a whole new civilization. And that's what America was. It was a melting pot of the earth.
Sure.
And so, you know, it was a great idea, and it actually worked for a while. But as life would have it, the powers that be behind the world thrones saw that this is not going to fly. This is not going to work. We cannot have a totalitarian dictatorship where everyone crawls on their knees to, and kisses your ring. If we've got the biggest and most powerful establishment in the world preaching freedom, liberty, and justice for all, it's not.
Do know marquee players such as David Icke, and the first time that I got a chance to say hi to you was in San Jose a couple of years ago, when I sat through about 7 hours of David Icke, and you were there.
Oh.
It was a long weekend.
I can imagine. Yeah, David does those long ones. I don't have that much energy left, so.
Well,
I brought David Icke.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I brought David Icke over to this country. I think it was about 92, 93. I was approached by some people from England and asked if I would bring their friend over, David Icke, over. And I said, why should I? Who is he? And so they began telling me about David's work and what he was doing and what he was trying to do. And I thought that sounded interesting, so I brought him over. I gave the two people who originally, met me, I gave them jobs also, bought them a new car, and got them a place to live, and started promoting David Icke around the world, and the rest is history. And yeah, I've worked with lots of people, from David Icke to Zachariah Sitchin. I was in business with him for a while and sent him around to around the planet. I was going to do a 13 one-hour miniseries with Zachariah Sitchin and for television, and I think we sent him to 5 countries. We were supposed to send him to 7 countries, but the deal fell through before we could finish it. So that never happened. But it was fun working with him. I have the highest respect and admiration for Zachariah, and like I said, we were business partners for a while. And John Rappaport, I hired him to work with me. A lot of people have heard of John Rappaport, and
sure.
And a lot of and Richard Hoagland, like I said, and just many other people behind the scenes for many years, because I always viewed what I was doing as I'm trying to awaken people to look at important information. I don't consider my work to be important. I consider the work of other people who have done so much for education.
Jordan Maxwell continues as a predominant researcher and speaker in the fields of secret societies, the New World Order, occult, religious philosophies, and ufology since 1959, way before I was born. His work on the subject of secret societies, both ancient and modern, and their symbols, has fascinated audiences around the world for decades. Considering the rapidly moving events of today and the very real part that hidden religious agendas play in our modern war-torn world, he feels these controversial subjects are not only interesting to explore, but too important to ignore. Of course, we are privileged to be joined tonight by the legend, Mr. Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, are you there?
Well, I'm here, yes. Kind of hard to follow that kind of an introduction, but
yeah, that was pretty good.
Because
like that?
I don't consider myself to be anything of an importance. I just do what I do, and I hope that other people can open their minds. This is all I'm trying to do, is just have people open their minds to the concepts and ideas that are all around us that most people will never be privileged to know about. We get so caught up in our everyday life that we don't really stop to think about who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, and what it all means. And so, I started talking about secret societies back in 1960, 61, and my goodness, now that I look around the world and see it's everywhere now, it's been quite a ride for me. Been quite an experience.
Well, it seems like it. I have to also say, folks, if you don't know Jordan, which there doesn't seem to be too many folks in this chat room, but the new guard that I like to call them, Jordan, the up-and-comers, the new generation, the 20s and the kids and their teens and such that are just getting exposed to someone like yourself. Jordan's a very humble individual. He doesn't take a lot of credit for what he's done, and he's also brought forward some of the people that you